Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight Podcast, where we ask questions like, can John Woo direct a movie with no doves in it? And we get the answer to that question today.
They get replaced by seagulls. That's the answer.
Correct. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we feeling today?
Well, bad, yeah. Really bad.
Look, I got a question for both of you. Do you fuck with the war?
Do you fuck with the war?
Fuck with the war. What kind of question is that?
Yo, Ryan, this bitch don't know about Pangea.
Don't know about Pangea.
So
yeah. I'd just like to say thank you both for giving me a chance to clip that in the Crudes episode. I know.
Well, yeah, but
I guess sue us, Little Dicky, please.
Yeah, but I guess now you have to splice into "You Fuck with the War."
I am going to. Eventually, we're just going to have that entire song in like 1.5 second clips throughout our entire podcast.
Yeah, I want the case when it inevitably goes to court will be groundbreaking.
Yes.
Whether or not we can monetize fair use snippets over a long enough separate period of episodes to be successfully sued.
Well, yeah, but you know Little Dicky, he's going to save that money, so he's going to have a real high-priced lawyer.
So we're here to talk about Windtalkers, a 2002 film that is rated R and clocks in at an interminable 2 hours and 14 minutes.
Wait, can I make a quick request?
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about literally anything else?
Unfortunately, no. I'm sure we'll have several digressions. It's funny, when I started my notes on this, I was like, this runtime, we've got to be careful about the structure of these episodes. And then I realized I can write one sentence for multiple patches of like 10 minutes of just gratuitous wide-scale violence.
Which is like the only interesting thing about the movies, the violence.
It was like legitimate something that I realized during the watching of this and the taking of the notes is that I'm not one for just depictions of the horror of modern warfare. I get it. And so it doesn't do much for me. But yeah, there's a lot of that. It is well done in this film.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to it.
I'm fine with that. I thought it was well done enough, but
I thought it's fucking legible battle scenes, which is something you don't get in cinema anymore.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, and I mean, I 100% understand that it is completely unfair what I am about to say, which is the opening scene of like Saving Private Ryan. Like, really,
that's like
it's unfair.
Excellent, though. Yeah, that's completely unfair.
But what I'm gonna say is that movie kind of jumps you into the horrors very well, and what this movie does is just a bunch of scripted fight scenes. Like the first scene, I was kind of impressed. I was like, oh, it's showing the horrors of war like pretty well. And then I realized that it's like you had no less than 4 people doing front rolls into fucking shooting somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's a John Woo movie.
It's a John Woo movie.
Exactly. Yeah. I will give you that. There is an absurd number of forward somersaults.
Yeah.
The only thing we're missing is somebody jumping through the air with 2 guns in their hands. And like you said, the doves.
Yeah. So I'll give you that, but otherwise, I mean, a lot of the large scale shit, the whole impact of modern war being like, so this is what it made me think about, and I think this might just be a guy thought. Maybe you guys can back me up on this.
Oh, are we having a dude's rock?
We might
moment?
Be having a dude's rock situation. Very. Inspired by the quote, every man believes he could win any one-on-one fight if he just goes, quote, beast mode enough. That's this. So like ancient warfare, spears, swords, arrows, and stuff like that, you have the opportunity to see death coming. Not that you always would, but the opportunity is always there. Being hit by like a fucking mortar or a long gun from an emplacement like a mile or 2 away is like legitimately horrifying in its own way. I can understand that, and I do think Woo demonstrates that really well in a lot of portions of this film. What I would consider
But he also says guns cool a lot. I think this isn't a dude's rock movie. I think this is a grandpa's rock movie.
This is definitely a
might
grandpa's rock movie. It's also a movie where they went to John Woo and probably said, like, we're doing an epic war piece, so therefore it needs to be over 2 hours, but we only have a script that is 50 minutes long. Go.
That I agree with. I think Woo padded the runtime admirably, given those tools to work with. But yeah, no. So in my opinion, like bad war scenes in films would be multiple explosions where like a group of 4 guys like dive forward as dirt and shit kicks up behind them with a couple of liberally applied Wilhelm screams.
I was
So
waiting for a
that.
Wilhelm scream this entire movie.
It never happened, and I was very upset.
Didn't even get a Howie scream.
Yeah. Well, that's the one I always recognize.
Yeah, I was expecting it as soon as they had the flamethrower. I was like, "Ooh, are we gonna get a Howie scream?"
Mm-hmm.
Wait, which one's a Howie scream? I know
that's StarCraft, the fire guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's the one I thought was a Wilhelm scream for a long time till I did the research into it, and I go, "Oh, okay, it's that other yell I always hear."
It's the Star Wars yell.
Yes, yeah, exactly correct.
Oh, they use that both of them in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into housekeeping because we're gonna have a fair number of these digressions, I think, over the course of covering the plot.
Absolutely.
So, to start with, we have the director, John Woo. You might be familiar with some of his work,
especially if you're me.
Yes,
especially if you listen to this podcast.
Yeah. So I know Ryan's going to supplement this list, but we have A Better Tomorrow, Hard Boiled, Broken Arrow, Face Off, one of the Holy Trinity films, and Mission Impossible 2, which I couldn't resist putting in here because it is the biggest tonal shift in all of the Mission Impossible movies, fully counting that Mission Impossible 1 is unrecognizable in tone and story writing comparative to the most recent ones, at least in my opinion. 2 was weird.
He also produced Bulletproof Monk, which is a movie I love.
Correct.
Oh, that movie whips ass. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I guess I think we've done this before, haven't we? Did we ever
for Face Off? Probably.
Okay,
Face Off.
Off. All right. Yeah. Then I'll just talk about Once a Thief, a movie I watched semi recently that I liked quite a bit. It's sort of a love triangle among thieves, but it's a John Woo movie, so it's got the doves, it's got the jumping, it's got the shooting.
Love it.
And got the Chow Yun Fat. What more do you want?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I enjoyed Bullet in the Head.
Yeah, Bullet in the Head fucking rules.
There you go. So a director that we are not biased against in any way, shape, or form. We all enjoy a lot of his work.
Yeah.
This was just an odd entry, in my opinion. Which brings us to the writers. How do we pin this down? So
they don't even have Wikipedia entries.
Well, they both have 6 or 7 writing credits in total, and they're clearly a writing team. This being John Rice and Joe Bettier. They both did Chasers, Blown Away, The Calling, and a recent Anna Nicole TV movie that Ryan said was shit.
Yeah, it was like really exploitative.
Oh, you said Chasers, and I thought you said Tracers at first. I was like, what?
No,
it's
no.
Yeah.
So moving on to the cast, I did a truncated version of this, mainly just because I enjoy when you guys yell when I leave people out.
Oh, I have nothing to say except for one dude.
There you go. So first up, as always, we have Nick Cage as Joe Enders. Next up, we have Adam Beach as Ben Yazzie. Adam Beach was in my favorite thing he's ever been in was Joe Dirt, but he was also in...
Oh, he is the fireworks guy.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
he likes snakes and sparklers.
Yep. And it's not what you want. It's the consumer.
Yeah.
He was also in Cowboys and Aliens, Flags of Our Fathers, The Power of the Dog, which was a good recent entry. He was in The Good Doctor because I realizing everybody's been in the fucking Good Doctor. He was in The New Mutants, although very briefly. He was in the Suicide Squad film and is a member of the Salta Nation. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
I think you got it as close as any of us would.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call out him and one of the other actors specifically because they're portraying Navajo, which was a key part of the plot in this film. So next up, I have Peter Stormare as Helmstad. They call him Gunny throughout the film. So But obviously he has been in Fargo, The Big Lebowski, Constantine, Armageddon, Minority Report. Those are just my favorites.
8mm.
Yeah, 8
That's right, 8mm.
Yep.
Next up, I have Noah Emmerich as Chick, the racist grunt in the troop.
Who looks like Jake Busey if his mouth is closed.
Yes. Yeah, he looks like a grimacing Jake Busey. But he was in Super 8, Miracle, Beautiful Girls, Copland, and Last Action Hero, just to call out.
Oh man,
my favorite
I love
childhood
Last
films.
Action Hero.
Yep.
And
So
I'll just call out he played Craig Patrick in Miracle.
Oh, there you go. Next up, I have Mark Ruffalo as Pappas, who is the Incredible Hulk, though he does not have a standalone movie. He was also in The Kids Are All Right, Foxcatcher, Spotlight, Shutter Island, Zodiac. He's been in things. You know who this man is.
And I'll just shout out he's in a very cute rom-com called Begin Again.
Okay.
Yeah. You know.
Rom-coms outside my particular wheelhouse. I'm not a big fan of them. Next up, we have Christian Slater as Ox Henderson. Christian Slater, assuming everybody knows, but let's call out some films. True Romance, Broken Arrow, Very Bad Things, Zoolander as himself, Interview with the Vampire, The Wizard, another one of the big films of my childhood.
Absolute classic. Wouldn't have known about the warp whistle in Mario 3 without it.
Yep. And to call out perhaps my favorite film I've ever seen him in, Heathers.
If you didn't say Heathers, I'd have to say Heathers. The one I'll shout out is Tales from the Dark Side. He was in one episode of the TV series, but he's also in one of the segments of the movie. He gets like tricked into being eaten by a mummy by Steve Buscemi.
Neat.
Yeah.
And I'll shout out just because you missed one of the obvious ones. He's a main character in Mr. Robot.
Oh yeah, he is the it's a spoiler to even talk about that man.
When we hit
he's in like episode 1 of Mr.
He's
Robot.
in episode 1, but like to reveal what or who he is the biggest spoiler.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
series.
saying. He's the main character. He exists.
Don't worry about it. Watch Mr. Robot.
Yeah, just watch Mr.
It's good.
Robot.
It's a fine show.
I tried to get my mom to watch it because I thought she'd like the intrigue of it, but she was like, he did heroin in the first episode. I'm not watching this.
Well, heroin's fun.
To defend myself when it comes to that, if we get somebody like Christian Slater in the cast list, I'm going to skip their TV credits.
Okay, because I'm also
That's
just
fair.
going to bring up that he does play the character Slater in Archer.
And he also plays an easily fooled security guard in Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, Noah Emmerich was in the first season of Walking Dead, but I didn't call that out because
I got you.
He was in 3,000 Miles to Graceland, my favorite movie about Elvis impersonators.
Oh, there you go. So
Christian Slater's just good.
Yeah, Christian Slater is good. He's also in The Office.
Yeah, he is.
So next up, I have Brian Van Holt as Harrigan, who bothered me
because
I was like,
man.
Yes, Flamethrower Man. But I was like, I fucking know this guy from something, which means it's in one of my like annual watch sets, and it's not a particularly good one, but we referenced it on the podcast before. I'll get to that last. He was in Black Hawk Down, Basic, SWAT, and House of Wax, which I forgot that he was in.
That's the Paris Hilton one?
Yes, it is. The Paris Hilton horror film.
The movie's, yeah.
It was a perfectly serviceable slasher.
There are better movies about houses of wax.
Of course there are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got Paris Hilton in it. What did you expect? Just while
she dies gruesomely.
She does die gruesomely, yeah.
While we're on TV shows, I will just bring up he was one of the leads in Cougar Town, which is a show that I enjoyed immensely.
He was also in Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
For like an episode. I think it was just one episode.
Yeah,
it's a pretty memorable one.
He played the Anarchy.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought he played the Sun.
Nope.
No. He played the Anarchy.
Completely wrong.
Okay.
And then the last one I have on my list, please wait until I'm done to commence the shouting, is Roger Willie as Charlie Whitehorse, who was in another Nick Cage joint. He was in Adaptation. He was also in Lost Stallions, The Journey Home. He was in Wesley, and he was in the Watchman's Canoe, shorter CV. But Roger Willie is actually Navajo. And in fact, apparently, at least this is a blurb in that accompanies his headshot and a lot of things, is he speaks Navajo better than his English is. But he was perfectly serviceable in all of the lines of this film, but just wanted to call that out.
Okay,
So,
I do have one to shout out,
of course.
actually. I mean, we have Kevin Cooney plays the doctor that gives Nick Cage the ear exam. He's the NORAD controller in Austin Powers, and he's also in Bulworth, a movie we've talked about before.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to shout him out because you mentioned him in the run up when we announced this film.
Yeah.
So I wanted to toss you that one.
And I'll just shout out. I don't know what anything else she's in, but Frances O'Connor plays the token love interest that exists in like 7 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, she looked incredibly familiar, but I could not place her specifically.
She's the mom in AI, Artificial Intelligence, the one with Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, with
oh,
the
she
kid.
was also in fucking The Conjuring 2. If I haven't made my personal opinions on the Warrens,
fuck them.
Yeah, exactly. That's my opinion. If I haven't shared that on the podcast before,
you definitely
anyway,
have every time they come up.
I'm sure it's one of my knee jerk reactions. I can't help it. Fuck those people.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So we are done with housekeeping, but we have only just begun the ads. No long preamble on this one because I realized we've been going really hard on just shitting on the ads. I don't want you to wear out your thumbs pressing that fast forward button. So if you haven't given us $1 a month on Patreon, sit through this. You know what you're in for.
And if you still haven't given us $1 on Patreon, patreon.com/NickCageFight, give us $1. Don't listen to these stupid ads.
There you go. So now we can get into the plot of this film. And I'm expecting this to be relatively messy. And all of my initial concerns about the structure of the episode are out the window. So let's just do our best. So we actually open on Ben saying goodbye to his family on the reservation and then getting on a bus where he is greeted by Charlie Whitehorse, the other Navajo who he has apparently talked into enlisting with him. And so this is our introduction to our Windtalkers, arguably the titular characters here.
Oh,
Yeah.
there is a moment at the very beginning before we get any actual context that I just need to shout out. There's a bunch of stock footage of Monument Valley in Arizona, and it is the same stock footage that's used in Back to the Future Part 3 and City Slickers 2, The Search for Curly's Gold.
There you go. What other podcast is going to give you this kind of depth of information on B-roll footage?
Yep.
Thank
I
you,
fucking
Ryan.
clocked it immediately. I didn't notice the Curly's Gold thing until I looked it up, but I was like, that is the same shot from Back to the Future.
Yeah, no, we're just the whole thing we bring to this particular niche of entertainment is all of our weird hangups that we notice during these films.
Like for me, it's that Back to the Future Part 3 is my favorite one.
There you go.
Because I'm insane.
No, that's fantastic. I remember as a kid where it was much less in my control as to what movies I could get my hands on. Seeing Back to the Future 1 and 2 and wanting to see Back to the Future 3 so badly that I dreamed a completely different plot up for it. I was like, that would be a great plot. I don't have any recollection of what my childhood mind conjured there, but I remember that vividly. So we cut from the introduction of the Navajos to a river, which this is a decent shot. We get a clean flowing river that we suddenly see red, obviously blood in the water come into frame, followed by a floating body, and then all hell sort of breaks loose as we refocus on Joe Enders and his tragic initial attempts at leadership in the U.S. military. We'll get context for this later in the film, but basically Nick Cage as Joe Enders and his troop are in the middle of getting severely ambushed in this swampy area.
Which is the theme for the movie.
Yeah, it is. But we do get some good shots of Nick Cage firing an SMG and waving forward his troops amidst explosions and enemies coming out of the brush, which includes this quickly into the film. Somebody running out of the brush with a sword and chopping off the hand of generic troop number 3, I guess.
It was so startling. I literally had to text the group like,
Yeah.
the fuck is this?
Yeah. Yeah, when you texted us that, I was like, he is very early into this film and probably not prepared for the rest of it.
Yeah. It's not even the best dismemberment.
No, the best dismemberment. I'm assuming we're thinking of the same.
Oh, we
exact
gotta
thing.
be thinking of the same one, because I was like, they didn't really just do that. That's phenomenal. It's great.
They didn't have to do what they did with that scene. We'll get there.
No,
So,
that was 100% a John Woo-ism that they were like, okay, we can't cut this out. That was too cool. We spent too much money on it.
yeah, it looks like Joe's troop is getting overrun pretty badly. They're being attacked from multiple sides. One of the guys, as they're like hunkering down between like 2 fallen trees, asks Joe, let's get out of here. Let's fucking run away. And Joe explains, no, command said we have to hold this area. And the guys continue to drop like flies until we get what to me was one of the most annoying scenes of the film. I'm glad they didn't call back to it more than one time, as far as my count was concerned. Is like one of the last dying men in Ender's arms, like Ender's is gripping him, goes, "God damn you, Joe Enders." It's biggest cliche. It's amazing.
It's to remind us who the characters are.
It's the most cliche thing. And then right after the "goddamn you, Joe Enders" is blown up by a grenade. And I remember thinking at this point, because I'd seen this movie before, but it was a long time ago. And so when this happened, I was like, is he not the fucking main character?
I thought that too.
He only gets a little blown up, apparently.
As a treat.
Yeah, he got better.
He got better.
So we cut from there to California, where the Navajo enlistees are being sworn into the military. And then we get some, not quite a montage, but a little bit slower than a montage. But
there's a ahistorical detail in this scene. The American flag has 50 stars, but Hawaii and Alaska were not yet states.
Yeah, it should have had 48.
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it should only have had 49, because I'll be in the cold ground before I recognize the state of Missouri.
Before I recognize Missouri.
Missouri. Thanks, Abe.
There you go. There's your Simpsons reference for the episode.
Thank you. I needed that personally.
Oh man, how much cooler would it have been if this was a flying hellfish movie?
Oh my god, would have been so much cooler. The hunt for Hitler's gold.
Yeah.
All the GIs are wearing onion on their belt, which was the style at the time.
Yeah.
So we do see the Navajo enlistees essentially assigning Navajo language words in code to various military ordnance, and we see Charlie Whitehorse and Ben Yazzie sort of excelling to a certain extent at this. Although that does make me question. I know they're focal points of the film, but are the best ones I guess it would be the best ones at this at quick recollection are the ones that you send out into the field, as opposed to put on the big ships with the guns. So I just answered my own question there. So we cut from there to a naval hospital where we see Joe Enders recovering from his grenade wounds in a wheelchair. A nurse Rita. They're both clearly sweet on each other to a certain extent. Her more than him, because he's a broken man with a haunted past. She comes to deliver him his meds, and Joe demonstrates his limited ability to walk again. Apparently, he had some severe inner ear trauma that's fucking with his equilibrium. And yeah, that sucks. Inner ear problems are terrible. I'm assuming more so when they're caused by a fucking grenade, but I don't know. So Joe seems really intent on rejoining the war effort, although the nurse is just like, fucking stay in traction. Why do you want to go back to that? Which is a fair point that is promptly ignored and dropped.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a hero war story. We don't want no nuance.
Yeah.
Not at all. So we see in the next scene, Joe is taking a hearing test. This is clearly part of the process that he needs to get through in order to be cleared for return to active duty. His hearing's still fucked up, but Nurse Rita is like helping him cheat the test. She's signaling to him when to indicate that, you know, a tone is being played. Also, by the way, so I had a weird experience with schooling. Like when I was in grade school and shit like that, I went to a not a fake school, but almost a fake school.
Sort of a fake school.
Yeah. So was my upbringing like the hearing tests of the same kind and quality that they gave to GIs in World War II? Or was that sort of universal?
That
for
was
kids?
universal. We all did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very normal to want to score very well on the ear test. You want to be able to hear super good.
Yeah.
Just like Superman.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like a video. You don't want to not get it.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same thing as the sight test, which
it's a normal thing to want that is totally achievable
when you're that age and
When
you
you're
don't
that
have
age, yeah.
severe tinnitus and hearing damage in general, spent accrued over years of making bad decisions.
That's how I got mine.
That's how I got mine.
Yep.
That and a little bit of childhood trauma, but it doesn't slow me down too much. I just need to be looking you in the face when you're talking, or else I'm going to miss some of it. So Joe, after being helped to cheat this test, appears to be on his road back to active service, and he has to interview with some guy, some other higher up, in order to get assigned to some new unit. In here we get a cut back to the Navajo code talkers who are working on transcribing messages delivered with this new Navajo code. And then we get the culmination of Joe's interview. We see Christian Slater briefly coming out of that office right before Joe goes in. And so this higher up, I don't remember if they mentioned his rank or whatever, but this guy basically explains to Joe the premise of the movie that we're going to follow from here on out.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that
I think I remember his name was Major Exposition.
yes, major exposition. So the plot point is essentially that Japan was really good at breaking U.S. codes at this point in time. So the new thing that they decided to do was to utilize the Navajo language and develop it into a code, and that the Japanese have not been able to crack this so far, and the name of the game is preventing them from doing so. This is demonstrated by showing like just a gruesome photo of what looks to be a vaguely Native American guy who had been tortured by the Japanese to try and figure out the code. But apparently just knowing the language isn't enough because it is still, in fact, a code. And
a code within
Joe
a code.
Yeah. So Joe is going to be assigned to essentially cover one of these code talkers that is being assigned to this unit. And then it is strongly implied to Joe, without being outright stated, that should a situation arise in which capture is the likely outcome for his charge, that he should kill this person instead. So yeah, that is, I guess, understandably couched in vagary here, because it's probably really bad for enlistment numbers if it got out that public policy was better dead than captured for people, but that's how it's played. So Joe is back in the shit. He is transferred to some sort of forward operating base of some sort, and we get to see him running on a beach as the Navajo code talkers arrive at this base. We get some more Christian Slater at this point, who introduces himself to Joe, and they sort of dance again in vague terms around the orders that they received that they can't talk about regarding the code talkers. And this sets up a theme that sort of continues throughout a majority of the movie. Joe is perfectly fine with these orders for the most part. In fact, he is going out of his way to try and make that as easy as possible for him. whereas Slater has some reservations. At least that's how I took it. I see some looks. Are you guys?
No, this
disagree?
is. I was just gonna say
Yeah.
this is also the scene where it's revealed that Christian Slater got shot in the ass just like Forrest Gump.
Oh yes, that's right.
Yep.
At this point, Ox goes to introduce himself to the Navajo, and in a demonstration of what I was just talking about, Joe's like, "Hey, probably best not to make friends." You know what I'm saying? In fact, demonstrating his own commitment to this particular course of action. After getting chow, Ben Yazi comes over to introduce himself to Joe as they are partnered up, and then Ben immediately accidentally knocks down Joe's coffee, and then goes, "I'm sorry, here, you can have mine," and then promptly spills his coffee all up in Joe's chow dish, who just like not saying anything other than "you're blocking my view," and then "hold this." He then salts Ben's food and just takes his food from him and then walks off.
It's
So
so
kind of
good.
a chilly reception there. Played relatively well. And then later that night, or rather, we cut to later that night, and we see the troops sort of in their downtime. The guys, the white troops, are playing cards or writing letters, whereas Ben and Charlie are sort of self-segregating a little bit. However, a spot opens up at the table, and Ox, Christian Slater's character, invites the Navajo over to play cards with them.
And I have no idea what they're playing. It
I
seems
was
to
gonna
be
ask you specifically what the fuck they were talking about.
So I think they were playing 5 card stud, which is a stupid game for stupid people.
Yeah, that's why it's always in westerns. Because it's
Well, no, what's always
for
in
yokels.
westerns is 5 card draw.
What is 5 card stud?
What's the difference between 5 card stud and 5 card draw? I was under the impression it was always stud in like fucking that one scene in Shane.
No, so draw is a bluffing game. Nobody knows your cards but you, and you also don't know anybody else's cards. So it's considered a bluffing game.
Okay.
5 card stud is you get the first card face down, and then the next 4 cards are played one at a time.
Oh.
Face up. Like
each player gets their own 4 cards?
Yes. So
okay.
each player starts with a face down card and then a face up card. Then there's a round of betting. Then everybody gets another card, round of betting. And you do that. It's a worse form of 7-card stud.
Okay.
Like if you know 7-card stud, like that's the real game. That's the game that's the game of gentlemen's.
One of these nights we got to go over and you can kick our ass in cards, because I don't know any of this stuff.
We'll bet with candy. That way I don't become poor.
Oh man, I am learning right now like how to efficiently count cards too. So that'll be fun.
Have fun with that. So yeah, so Charlie declines this invite primarily because this is where we get our first sort of ham-fisted. I don't know if it's appropriate for the time or whatnot, but we get our first demonstration of Chick, Emmerich's character, being racist. And so Charlie declines after the racist display, whereas Ben is clearly trying to fit in and agrees to come over and sit down. He even tries to exchange witty barbs in response to some just outright racist shit that Chick says. I think specifically was something like, "Thanks for joining us, Chief." And Ben's like, "How'd you know I was a chief? You must have seen me showering with my war bonnet on."
That is verbatim what he says, yeah.
There you go. So, yeah. So I guess that stuck out because, again, that's trying to use joking to get around somebody being a level of ass to you directly that is uncomfortable. But it does
I'm actually rewatching the scene right now, and it's like I have no fucking idea what's going on. Some people have 6 cards, some people have 5, some people have 7. I don't know what's happening.
But
sorry,
that's fine because we don't get much more of this scene anyway.
No, but also the racist man does make a blind man's bluff joke. Like, isn't this how you people play cards? And he puts like the card on his head.
Oh yeah.
Which is an actual game called Blind Man's Bluff.
And that is the one that causes Charlie to decline the invitation.
Yeah.
But the scene is important for a couple of reasons. It's defining several of the characters for us. Chick is racist. Joe is purposely trying not to get close to the Navajo folks in any way, shape, or form because of his writ mission. Ox is resistant to that and trying to be inclusive. Charlie is a little bit more isolationist. He doesn't care if people like him or is going to defeat racism with the power of friendship, whereas Ben is kind of eternally optimistic that he can get past these cultural hangups. At this point, I think that scene ends, and we get a later scene where the group is told that they are going to be shipping out to the island of Saipan. This this news is delivered by Gunny, played by Peter Stormare, which this is what made me crack up, because I was like, Stormare has one accent. I don't understand.
Well, he did try to do an American accent, but you can tell it slipped a bunch of times.
Did he? I didn't even get that at all. He sounded like every Peter Stormare performance he's ever done. Ever.
Yeah, it sort of sounded like I'm sure you guys have watched it, but have you ever seen The Wire?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The fucking guy who plays McNulty.
You're talking about are you taking notes on a fucking criminal conspiracy?
But yeah, like the fucking guy who plays McNulty come like season 3 just stopped giving a fuck.
Yeah.
And you can just hear his
Fair point.
Irish accent constantly.
That's a fair point. But yeah, anyway, so this is not particularly.
Do they ever establish at any point like where he's from? Because then we might be able to pin it down like he's the child of immigrants, like a first generation, and that could explain the accent. But I don't think it's ever addressed at all.
It's incredibly loosely implied at a couple of points.
I'm about to say Baltimore, right? Is what it was implied.
No. That was my joke.
Okay,
my joke was he does not sound like he's trying to do a Baltimore accent. But the implication of him being some type of transplant is, I think, at one point there's some kind of nickname that is used to refer to him that I didn't catch. And then there's one scene where he's eating pickled herring and asks Joe if he's ever had pickled herring.
I did get that, and I was just like, is he Swedish?
That would be my guess.
Yeah, no. Like I said, it's loosely implied by mannerisms, but never directly addressed. So Joe has a bit of a PTSD episode, and Ben tries to be understanding or possibly help out, and Joe keeps trying to not establish any sort of relationship with this guy that he might have to kill. And then we get a scene that night of the boys getting rowdy prior to shipping out, doing some drinking and shit. At this point, we get scenes of the boys arriving in Saipan. And the landing is relatively heavily contested. It's preceded by copious bombing from planes, from their air support. And so I guess this is as good a time as any to talk about Nicolas Cage's casting as Joe Enders.
Well, I mean, it's actually better to talk about ads first.
Oh yeah, I guess we could do that.
Yeah, we should talk about ads first. But if you don't like to talk about ads, then you should go to our Patreon. Tell us that you don't like ads, and you can do that by giving us $1 every month.
Vote
that is your way of
money.
sticking it to the men. Stick it to the man. Give us $1.
Yeah, they hate that.
Yeah, if you think dudes rock, give the dudes $1.
If you think grandpas rock, give us $1.
And we're back. So
now we can talk about casting.
Yeah, so Nick Cage is Joe Enders. Now, Rich, I know you were not a particularly big fan of this movie. You suggested even perhaps that Cage might be phoning it in. I will say that I think Cage, as a PTSD riddled veteran with a huge chip on his shoulder regarding the nebulous enemy entity here, it tracks to a certain extent. Cage does crazy pretty well. Not to be dismissive of PTSD. Obviously, it's a very real thing. But if you're like, we need somebody acting particularly unhinged because of X, Y, or Z, Cage is an obvious contender. The problem is, at least in my opinion, is there is no nuance to that performance or portrayal.
Oh, none.
So, you're kind of putting yourself in a box as far as how this character is going to be perceived. And this scene kind of epitomizes that to me, because Joe goes Rambo mode during the landing, like extremely brutally violent, to a way where like we get shots of basically everybody else being like, what the fuck? The thing that came to my mind that's in my notes is everybody disliked that from the fucking Fallout thing, because basically everybody is like, Jesus Christ, simmer down. It's just war. God damn. And he's having an unhealthy amount of flashbacks to the troop that was lost underneath his command. And so we get a lot of gratuitous overarching war scenes here. Guys getting stuck in barbed wire, flailing in barbed wire, being blown up in said barbed wire. And this is where in my notes I literally have, Jesus, this shit really is just Wu does the horrors of war, huh?
Yeah.
We also get a tank that is blown up by grenades and then set on fire with a flamethrower.
It's actually pretty cool the way that they frame that specific scene from a filmmaking standpoint.
I don't disagree at all. We get an RPG shot. I think that is ultimately completed by Christian Slater's character. A bit of Mark Ruffalo hopping from foxhole to foxhole. It's relatively harrowing. So we get to the first demonstration of the Navajo Code Talkers' utility on the battlefield, when they have to call in fire support to take out some gun emplacements. And Ben hops into action with a bit of prodding from Joe. We get to see a scene where the Japanese are trying to intercept and interpret what they're hearing, but they cannot decipher it. I think the line is, they sound like they're underwater. What are they speaking?
Yeah. That's like, is that English? I think is the second question.
Yeah. So at this point, the naval guns come into play and bombard the ridge with these guns. This done, the GIs literally storm a trench, which is as violently depicted as you could imagine. Trench warfare being known to be kind of not nice, not what you'd want to do on a vacation. But yeah, pretty brutal in general. Ben is confronted by an enemy soldier, but can't bring himself to pull the trigger. At which point, Joe just comes, like, both of them are having that I have to pull this trigger and kill another human being moment. And Joe just walks up behind the Japanese soldier and cuts his throat with a knife that he pulls. So, yeah, so there you go. There is a machine gun bunker, or like little, whatchamacallit, hidey hole that they need to destroy with a satchel charge, because apparently those Call of Duty games are pretty accurate. I wasn't aware of the actual practical application of satchel charges outside of video games, but they're a thing.
Yep.
And so Joe is continuing his demonstration of his near suicidal zeal when it comes to getting shit done. He literally takes the satchel charge from another troop that was supposed to deliver it, and runs up and tries to chuck it into the machine gun nest. It doesn't make it inside and sort of just smokes ominously outside of it until Joe does some more insane, dangerous shit to grab it again and throw it, making it into the machine gun nest. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was watching this thinking I would never, under any circumstances, even if it seemed like my life depended on it, run up and pick up a live bomb that I failed to properly throw the first time, assuming I had enough time to get it right on a second try.
Well, that's because you're not the protagonist in a jingoist piece of imperialist propaganda.
That is fair. I
Yeah.
might feel differently
Yeah.
were that the case. But yeah, that's fucking insane to me.
It is crazy, yeah. I mean, it's action hero shit because it's a fucking action movie.
But
It's not
does that
I don't consider this a war movie. This is a fucking action movie.
fair?
Oh yeah. This is definitely an action movie disguised as a war movie. It's actually, if you look at the movie poster, it looks like it's almost like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like with what's his
kinda?
name on Nick Cage's back. Like
Yeah.
just put on big smiles and you have like the other guys.
But yeah, no, it made me wonder if anybody actually does that. Because me, I would go back to the foxhole and be like, I didn't make it. Didn't get in there. I'm a bad throw. I told you guys. I shouldn't be the one to do this.
This is why I get picked last in the
Yeah.
baseball game every time.
Yeah, no, I was terrible at this shit. I told you. Why'd you even try and make me do that? So anyway, the satchel charge does get properly thrown the second time, and blows up, and takes out the machine gun nest. And this is sort of the conclusion of the first or second, I guess, big battle scene. And the Marines set up a forward operating base of some sort at that point in time. So in a couple of these scenes, we get like this radio chatter between Navajo code talkers at this point. And this is where they say the name of the movie, Windtalkers. It's the new call and answer code, I guess, to prove you're one of the good guys. And that night, the guys sit around again, and we get some touching war bonding moments, I guess. One guy, Nell, asks Pappas, Ruffalo's character, to make sure his wedding ring gets back to his wife if something should happen. And Ruffalo's like, you can't even talk like that, man. You keep that shit. Nothing bad is gonna happen to you, which essentially seals this man's fate.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we all know at this point that Nell is going to die, and it's
Yeah.
probably going to be fucking gruesome.
Yeah, like as soon as that happened, I'm just like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're dead as shit.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe and Ox watch as Ben and Charlie perform some type of ritual together. We learn the context of this a bit later, but it includes some ash, and some words spoken over Ben by Charlie. So the next morning, we see Ben bathing on his own in a river. And when he gets out to put his gear back on, he is confronted by Chick, who is continuing to be racist, only now not even vaguely, but openly threatening and racist. Joe walks up to witness a portion of this confrontation directly before it gets physical, and Ben and Chick get into a fight. This is broken up by more members of their unit coming upon this scene. I think with Pappas actually doing most of the breaking up. Chick just says, hey, I thought he was a Japanese troop. He shouldn't be off on his own. And Pappas is basically like, you're a fucking dick. And that's about it, right?
Yeah.
So later on, we see Ben explaining the ritual from the night before to Joe. He explains it is a protection ritual, and Joe is a bit dismissive of it, but some element of what Ben explains about his experience, essentially his first look at war, resonates with Joe, given the PTSD flashbacks he's been having. So this is, I'm assuming, supposed to demonstrate a minor step in the road to, Joe's coming to terms with Ben as an individual and not just a mission.
Yeah,
It's not particularly subtle. Nothing in this movie is particularly subtle, but there you go. So Ox and Whitehorse, I actually really liked these. I think there's this one and one other one, but I thought it was a pretty solid character development for the two. They bond over their respective instruments. Charlie with a traditional flute of some sort. I'm not sure.
That's fucking Christian Slater whips out a goddamn harmonica.
A harmonica.
Yeah,
So,
it tracks
it's
for me,
so
though.
funny. I found it so funny. It's like, this is something that's been passed down for generations in my culture. This is a piece of fucking metal.
Yeah.
Like, my dad gave this to me.
Fucking the guy from Blues Traveler is gonna have a vest with 27 of these on him.
Sometimes in our culture,
They can only
guitarists
play
will
in
wear
one key.
this on a contraption around their neck so they can play guitar and the harmonica at the same time.
Bruce Springsteen is gonna make this so fucking popular.
Oh, fuck Springsteen. It's Bob Dylan's thing.
There you go.
Listen, I will always defend Nebraska.
Okay, Nebraska and Darkness on the Edge of Town are okay albums, and I like Murder Incorporated as a song, but generally,
Hold up.
fuck Springsteen.
No. Get out of Jersey. You're not allowed here no more.
Fuck Springsteen.
No.
We're not supposed to say that in this state.
Hey man, I was born here. I'm allowed to have a little bit of bitterness towards Springsteen. If he's our like rock guy, man, fucking Jersey sucks.
You
Hold on,
prefer
this
Bon
song-
Jovi?
The song Thunder Road exists.
Ow. All of his music sounds the same. It's all kind of boring. Just like Bon Jovi.
Yeah, our options are a little limited, but
Yeah, and I choose the
yourself into a
Misfits.
corner.
I make the correct choice, which is the Misfits.
Yes, I do enjoy a bunch of racism in my music as well.
Actually, no. I was gonna derail us by asking Ryan which Misfits he's
Oh,
fucking
come
talking
on.
about.
But they're all awful people.
Yeah, they are all awful
They're
people.
all the worst. I mean,
Sure, but there's also like 78 iterations of that fucking band.
I mean, also like the Graves era is the worst considering how
Absolutely,
he's a
yeah.
Proud Boy now.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a goddamn Proud Boy.
Well, I mean, his music sucked before he came out as a piece of shit. So, whatever.
Yeah, he did the song American Psycho, which is trash.
Yeah,
There you go. We always have to have a brief foray into music as well.
absolutely.
I've been noticing. So yeah. So at this point, the troops set out further inland. Fun fact about my mental state while I was writing my notes for this. The line in my notes reads, the troops shits out further inland. I don't know what I was fucking thinking. And
I think that might just be a typo, buddy.
I believe so. I 100% believe so.
Yeah.
But I must have been distracted by something because that is a perfectly spelled shits there. Joe gets a letter from the nurse he was friendly with. So we get some narration from Nurse Rita, despite not seeing her again at any point in this film. I think that's right.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think we get like a couple of like voiceovers of him like reading mail.
Well, she narrates the letters that she's writing to him in the voiceover. And this is immediately followed up with Ben writing a letter to his son in the back of the Jeep thing that they're in right next to Joe. And Joe is very contemptuous of this. He's like, why are you writing a letter to your son? You know there's no letters out from the bases. Fucking stop. Reiterates the point until Ben puts away his pad of paper, and he then explains, I know, I figured that's something that he could read after I get home. And so we get a little information about Ben's son, who is named George Washington Yahtzee.
Yeah.
Which is a choice.
That's a hell of a
certainly
name,
choice.
Man, this movie is full of I don't know the word for it, but like, remember like being a kid growing up and you're learning about all the atrocities that like Americans have done to like seemingly random people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you think to yourself, well, I would never do that. You create like a backstory for yourself that's just like, I would have been one of the good ones.
Yeah.
This is them showing him that like, oh, he's one of the good ones. He wants to assimilate into American society and name his son George Washington.
The model minority.
Yeah.
That was part and parcel to all of the awful things and the framing of history.
Yeah.
So yeah. Not particularly ideal, but I don't think you're incorrect about its inclusion and demonstration here.
Yeah, it's to make white people okay with watching this movie.
Yes.
Same with them doing the whole like we pledge to the Constitution of the United States, because I'm sure all of these fucking Windtalkers are like, this sucks. We're being conscripted to this, and this country literally has taken everything from us.
I don't know if they were conscripted or not. I'm actually not sure. I'm not
I'm
sure
actually
about
gonna
a
look
lot
it
of
up.
the
I
factual basis of this film.
Yeah, I was gonna say a couple of them do say they signed up. They weren't drafted.
Ben
Yeah,
and
but
Charlie
is
specifically.
yeah, but is that just like white people shit for this movie? And if it's not,
might
I
be.
will
It
apologize
might be,
on
yeah.
episode 2 because I'll look it up.
Yeah, but while they're on this track, they start getting shelled by long guns, and things degenerate pretty quickly. We learn contextually almost immediately that they're being inadvertently shelled by their own people, which is a massive L for
Yeah.
the US military here. But I do think that this convoy being shelled by their own people is an appropriate cliffhanger for episode 1. We will pick up from here next time and conclude this film to the best of our abilities. So in the meantime, if you're just ravenous for more Cage Fight podcast content, we have an extensive back catalog that you're welcome to listen to. You can find us on social media. We are at cagefight_pod on X, at least for the moment. Day to day, that is subject to change. We have a Facebook, but just for uncles, preferably drunk uncles, or if you think we are somehow actually Nick Cage himself. That is the social media you want to follow us on and send us repeated messages on. We do also have a Patreon that, for the lowest tier, lets you get rid of the ads and shit. Higher tiers will get you access to more content. Rich, hit him with the link.
Yeah, it's patreon.com/Nick Cage Fight. I finally uploaded the 4-hour long wrestler Patreon because it took that long to go through.
Yeah, Jesus.
And pick out everything that I had to like bleep out. That episode is 4 hours long, and no, I did not cut it. You have to take it all in one sitting.
Yeah, we played it fast and loose with that one. But that's for a good long car drive right there. And
Yeah.
we've been promising it for forever. So
And it might be our best episode.
it might be.
Yes, it did in fact remind me that I do have to just have Josh and Ryan watch random wrestling clips.
Yes, please.
I'm down for that. I'm down for that.
Which I think is just going to be
a
bunch
game out of it.
Which I think I've decided is going to be one of two things: just the worst botches ever, or just a bunch of frontier martial arts wrestling.
Yeah, all right.
Either
which I know Josh doesn't know that second one.
I don't.
So it'll be a fun treat for me.
There you go.
Wait, Ryan, do
is
you know
that
what
the one where they fucking blow up the ring?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. You told me about this.
This is like the exploding death matches and stuff, where the rings literally explode.
Yeah, you've sent me some clips from this, and yeah, it is.
It fucks so hard.
That seems impossible, but I am absolutely intrigued.
Look, I used to not be that interested in wrestling, and then I started talking about wrestling to Rich more, and now I'm really into the idea of getting super into wrestling.
Yeah, and look, through Onita, all things are possible. That is a joke that Josh will get in 2 weeks.
Rich, did you notice that the new Yakuza game has a bunch of New Japan wrestlers in it again?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Hell yeah.
I gotta play it now.
I do too.
The Yakuza games are always a good time.
Yeah,
always a good time.
In this one, Kiryu has superpowers.
Doesn't he in like all of them?
Oh, I mean, like he's got fucking jet shoes and shit.
Okay, all right, we'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
But all right, that'll do it for us this time. Thank you, as always, for listening, for tuning in, and just hearing us talk about random Nick Cage movies. We, of course, always appreciate you, dear listener.